Hello, I'm Nina Ene. We're in the run-up to election 2015, the most important election in Nigerian history, and some would say the most important in Africa. For 2 weeks now, parties have been deregistered and new parties have registered, such as the opposition forerunner APC. Today, Dr. Abati, the special advisor to President Goodluck Jonathan, will be joining us to discuss the feelings of the president regarding his opposition and the Nigerian situation in general. Welcome to the show, Dr. Abati. It's always a pleasure having you here.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, Mr. Abati, you seem to be taking a reactive and defensive position these days, constantly on political matters. Are you as feisty as your responses to your opponents show?
I think that the basic point that I've tried to make very clear is that, look, the Constitution guarantees the freedom of association. People have the right to assemble, they have the right to form political parties, they have the right also under Section 39 to express their own opinions and to even set up platforms for expressing those opinions. However, in doing so, they must exercise those rights within the bounds of the law, within the bounds of decency, within the bounds of common sense. However, what we have seen is that the opposition has not been engaging this administration on the basis of ideas, on the basis of an alternative ideology, on the basis of reason. There has been an obsession with the personality of the president, with the office of the president. And what they've been doing in an attempt to gain attention, to gain relevance, and perhaps to promote their own objectives is to attack the person and the office of the president. And my intervention has been to simply make it clear that yes, your ambitions are legitimate. It is the Nigerian people that will decide at the end of the day, but you have no right to denigrate the same office that you seek to occupy. So when persons come up and they refer to the president of Nigeria as kindergarten president, and their motive is clearly one of ambition, and they say, oh, when they refer to the president of Nigeria as kindergarten president, that they are engaged in constructive criticism, then it is my duty to tell them that that is not constructive criticism, that that is based on sentiments, that that is name calling, that that is the politics of abuse, that indeed that is defamation. And then if you look at the way the opposition, particularly the APC, has organized itself, 4 or 5 of them, they come after the president, they attack the president. The same day that Chief P.C. Akonde was calling the president a kindergarten president, a few hours later, Nasir Rufai, another ambitious fellow, was referring to the president as the grandfather of oil thieves. He was accusing the president of ethnicity. He was accusing the president of all kinds of things. Can we play the politics of decency? And people have criticized me. They said my response has been harsh and all of that. They must be told very clearly that if they throw a stone at the president, we will throw a boulder at them.
Okay. So Dr. Abati, are you saying that all these responses coming from the APC and the ACN make you feisty? Do they give you cause for worry?
I'm saying simply that the responses must be within the limits of decency, that the responses must be reasonable, that the responses must be constructive in the real sense, and that, the opposition, even while they pretend not to like the face of the president, should at least be patriotic.
Okay.
And that when you seek to pull down the government, when you seek to pull down the office of the president, when you have persons who say they would like to be president of Nigeria using such expressions as must, life and death, as Buhari did the other day, then it is part of our duty, not just as presidential aide, but also as a concerned Nigerian, to tell them that, look, no, this is not the way it is done. People must be decent even when they are playing politics. Okay, and that was why I used the expression armored personnel carrier. Okay, referring to the APC. And my whole point, of course, is that contestation in politics is legitimate, but it must be decent. It must be reasonable. And I guess that from the responses to my reaction, the majority of Nigerians also believe that, in fact, the grammar of politics, that's echoing last year, I think, should be more decent, should be more reasonable. And I made
Yes,
that
we
point.
all agree. We all agree with that. But Dr. Abati, the president
Yes.
himself, Dr. Abati, please, the president himself, does he feel threatened by the opposition at this point in time?
He does not feel threatened by the opposition. In fact, the president welcomes, the plurality of the political situation, the emergence of, many contestants, because that is what politics is all about. In a political situation, you are bound to have a lot of people showing interest in particular positions. And as I said earlier, Section 40 of the Constitution makes this clearly possible. And INEC is an independent body. If anything, I think President Jonathan should be praised for the fact that he has refused to interfere in the process, because the integrity of the electoral process is one of the achievements of his administration.
So
Because
you're saying he doesn't mind he doesn't mind having as opponents an unprecedented amount in Nigerian history. Are you saying that come 2015, he doesn't mind being against 30 other people? 30 other candidates?
He doesn't mind INEC doing its job as an independent body.
So you're
And
saying
INEC is clearly demonstrating its independence, and the president, who is committed to the integrity of the electoral process, who demonstrated this in 2010, 2011, and who continues to say that he will not tamper with the integrity of the electoral process, is very happy with the development.
Okay, so you're saying that President Goodluck Jonathan, well, from his advisor, I can say that President Goodluck Jonathan will be contesting in 2015.
I have not said so. What I have said repeatedly and consistently is that President Jonathan has not yet made a statement on that particular issue. And in the last presidential media chat that we had, and we're going to have another one very soon in a matter of weeks, if not days, I made it clear that in 2014, he will make his position clear. But as at this moment, he does not like a situation whereby people try to distract his attention, because that clearly is the strategy of the opposition, to distract the president, to change the narrative, to impose a narrative on him, and to make sure that by 2015, what you have is a situation whereby Nigerians are talking about a different kind of narrative. The kind of narrative that President Jonathan wants is the narrative of performance, the narrative of achievement, the narrative of focus, the narrative of commitment at this moment.
Okay, so you're saying he's not running then, because the new Electoral Act says that elections have to be done 6 months to inauguration. Are you saying he's not going to be contesting?
The INEC has not yet come up with a timetable.
Okay.
What you must know is that the electoral process is dictated by INEC. When INEC is ready, INEC will announce the election timetable, and then the various parties will key into that. All these persons who are claiming that they want to be president, they want to be this and that, they are doing that out of the framework. And President Jonathan, as a law-abiding person, has said that he will follow due process, he will follow the rules in every matter particular. And that applies in this particular instance.
Okay, so at that point, we will know if indeed he will be contesting in 2015.
Well, he said it clearly himself that he will address that subject when INEC blows the whistle.
Okay. Well, since you deny the president has any 2015 political agenda, we'll focus on what he has himself said.
That was not what I
Sorry?
said. I said that the president has not yet spoken on that matter, other than to say that he remains committed to the assignment that Nigerians have given him, and that is what he's focusing on.
Okay, well, let's take that.
All the people are speculating.
Okay.
They're just speculating for their own personal reasons.
Okay, let's take that. Also, in your correspondence, you have said that President Goodluck Jonathan is not disturbed by 2015. His mind is not even on 2015. He's focusing on the mandate he has promised to deliver. Mandates such as security, power supply, and peace. So do you think he has delivered on that mandate at this point in time?
He has, and I recommend to you the midterm report that was presented to Nigerians on the occasion of the 2 years anniversary of this administration. Now, a lot of people raise this question, but they've not read that document, and that is why I keep recommending it. Now, the significance of that document is that this is the very first time in the history of this country that the president will come forward and say, this is what I've been able to do. this is what I promised you. This is what I've been able to achieve. And that document deals with these issues. If you don't have copies, I'll be glad to bring you copies when we come for the United Nations General Assembly in September. However, the specific issues that you have raised about security, certainly yes. This administration has done a lot to secure the lives and property of Nigerians. And the biggest challenge that we have faced has been that of the insurgency, the terrorist attack in the northeastern flank of Nigeria. Now, if you check, 3 months down the line, after the declaration of the state of emergency, Nigeria has received nothing but praise from the international community. The ICC prosecutor has praised the Nigerian government for taking the initiative to confront the threat of terrorism frontally. The ICC prosecutor also made it clear that indeed the terrorists are guilty of crimes against humanity. Now, after that, the Undersecretary for Political Affairs of the United States has also visited. And she has also made it clear that the United States is strongly behind Nigeria and will continue to partner with Nigeria to challenge, to check the threat of terrorism. Indeed, she went a step further to say that Boko Haram poses a threat, not just to Nigeria, but to the United States and the rest of the world. And the achievements of the Jonathan administration in checking terrorism in the Northeast in particular has been very well advertised, and the evidence is compelling.
Okay, let's leave Boko Haram for now. Let's leave Boko Haram for now.
We're
going to get there.
Security,
yes.
And I wanted to explain to you.
We're going to get there, sir. We're going to get there, sir. Let's leave the issue of security for now. Let's focus on power supply. Well, you know, with the privatization of the power sector, on August 21st, the federal government is expected to realize $2.5 billion. So would realizing that money would it be easier to achieve the 10,000 megawatts that President Goodluck Jonathan had promised Nigerians?
Well, I think with regard to electricity supply.
Yeah, in the third quarter.
No, you just wait. I'll explain it. You know, Nigerians say light, light, light. They just want light, uninterrupted, sustainable power supply. But the truth of the matter is that most of our people do not understand the details. And it is as follows. There is a power sector reform process. All of what anybody asks for is within that envelope of reform. When President Jonathan took over, even as acting president in 2010, what he did was to activate that reform process. And that reform process is focused on a number of issues: ensuring efficiency, ensuring handover to the private sector, ensuring competitiveness, making sure that the relevant infrastructure is provided, sorting out the labor issues, and then sorting out issues about generation, distribution, and transmission. Now, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, a lot has been achieved as we speak. The process of getting the private sector involved in that process of reform is at an advanced stage. About 15, 17 preferred bidders had already paid to take over. Now, our expectation is that when the private sector takes over effectively, then, of course, the private sector functioning as private sector will be able to raise the level of performance, and the competitiveness that will result will lead to efficiency.
So you're saying right now we haven't gotten there?
No, that process is ongoing.
President Goodluck Jonathan hasn't delivered on his mandate? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not. He has delivered on his mandate to the extent that the process of transformation in the power sector is ongoing and it has reached an advanced stage. Now, when those private sector investments, when they take over effectively, they being private sector investors, of course, will not be hampered by all the challenges that government is facing. The labor issue, government is going to pay close to about 400 billion naira, to people who have been engaged in PACN and all that, and all the successor companies that are already on the ground to take over. So when Nigerians say we have 4,500, 2,000 megawatts, when the process is completed, you can be sure that all of this, will be resolved. Now, people compare Nigeria to Ghana. Ghana has just a population of about under 20 million. If Ghana generates about 2,500 megawatts, the whole country will have 24 hours power supply. But Nigeria has a population of over 170 million persons with great distances, which present challenges in terms of transmission, in terms also of distribution.
Okay.
Now, all of these have been addressed, even the regulatory framework. This president has worked it out. So it's a process.
So what's the reason
And
for the
there are
drop
issues
in
that
power
need to be
supply
addressed.
in the second quarter? Sir, what's the reason for the drop in power supply for the second quarter? It dropped about 47%. What's the reason for that?
Vandalism.
Yes.
The Minister of Power had already addressed this, that we have a situation whereby there is a lot of gas pipeline vandalism. Okay, and this is where we talk about the issue of sabotage. There are perhaps, I do not have immediate proof that I can present to you, that there are persons who do not want this process to work because of their own vested interest. But government is committed to making sure that the process works. And once the process of handing over to the private sector is completed, our expectation is that the power producers and the gas users and the gas owners will, of course, work out a template to make sure that there is no disruption. So what we have at the moment is a case of vandalism. It's a deficit at the level of patriotism. But of course, government at the security level and in terms of the reform process is addressing all of this.
Okay, let's go back to 2015, to election 2015. Following the strife in Rivers State, President Goodluck Jonathan has been blamed for what's going on in Rivers State. Several of the president's opponents also blame him for all the problems currently leading up to the 2015 elections. He himself said at a meeting with the Nigerian Bar Association that the politics of 2015 is threatening political peace in Nigeria. What is his response to this? How much is he willing to risk to rule Nigeria again?
Well, you are just quoting a statement that I issued. But let me put
This is not a statement you issued, sir. This is fact.
No, the statement, you quoted a portion of the statement about the NBA, and that statement was issued from my office. Now, it is as follows. Now, there is an obsession with 2015.
Yes.
And because of 2015, there are so many persons, we have so many persons playing the politics of 2015. And so whatever happens within the polity, they blame President Jonathan. I guess we're going to wake up one morning, a man will have an issue with his wife, and he will say it is President Jonathan that he saw in his dream. I think that people must just differentiate between sentiments and facts. In Rivers State, Governor Amechi, he has his own issues. You have issues between his own godfathers and his own politics. You have issues between his office and his own politics and persons around them. And all of that is being played out. And yet people say it is President Jonathan. Okay? And you have that replicated in different scenarios across the country. But our point is this, that people have the right to play politics, but they should not drag President Jonathan into every little communal conflict, every little clan conflict, every little disagreement that occurs in different parts of the country.
Well, since there are segments and there are pockets of the country against him, how much is he willing to risk to rule this country again?
Well, I don't understand your question.
What I'm trying to say is there are pockets. Yes?
No, I get your point.
Yes.
But I see that it's a mischievous question. I've made it very clear to you that President Jonathan has not said anything about his interest in 2015. Whether he's interested in it or he's not interested in it, what he has made clear is that he remains focused on the assignment that Nigerians have given him. When the time comes, he will address that subject. And it doesn't matter how an interviewer phrases the question. This is our position, and we stand by it for now.
Okay. Well, we're going to move on to problems of security. Well, the Boko Haram have successfully killed almost 100 people in the last 2 weeks. You say that the ICC has lauded the Nigerian government for curbing Boko Haram, but that is not what we're hearing. That is not what we're seeing. Also, the Amnesty Committee led by Mr. Kabiru Turki appears to have failed. And even the military seems to have, dumped that to the side. What is President Goodluck Jonathan thinking of doing about Boko Haram? What is he thinking of doing about this amnesty committee that cannot seem to make a good enough negotiation that can take the country
Well,
forward?
you don't seem to understand the issues.
Please
And
explain the issues. Please explain the
if you give
issues.
me the time, I will explain. One, the level of confidence within the security agencies is in fact at an all-time high level. So it is not right to say that the security agencies are, a bit apprehensive or diffident. And the Director of Defense Information, he has been granting interviews. I've also granted a number of interviews to say that the morale of the troops is very high and that they are very happy with the success that they have been able to record. And what is this success all about? One, before the declaration of the state of emergency in the affected states, there was fear, there was anxiety in parts of the country. Now, that is no longer there. What we have is a situation whereby the people themselves are so confident that the youth in the affected states have even bought into the government agenda. They've created vigilante groups, they've erected signboards showing that they themselves will not tolerate terrorism and that they are prepared to help arrest the terrorists and hand over to government. I think that that is a very great achievement for this government. It shows that government has embarked on a course in which it has been able to secure the buy-in of the people.
But that does not follow with numbers. That doesn't go with numbers. If people are on the streets, yes, sir, but if people on the street are going around carrying placards saying they're going to capture terrorists, it doesn't change the fact that people are being killed every week. Could you give Nigerians an explanation as to why that is still happening?
No, you don't live in Nigeria.
Sir, I'm very Nigerian. I am very Nigerian, and it's not been a long time since I left Nigeria.
It's not about internet narrative. You just listen.
This is not internet narrative. I'm not the only Nigerian who has the same feeling.
And you just hold on.
I don't even have the feeling. I want information for Nigerians. Why is Boko Haram still a threat to Nigeria?
Well, what you have seen in the last 2 weeks, if you will listen and be patient, is that, look, what you see is a desperation on the part of Boko Haram. What you see is a swan song. And I guess, you know what a swan song is. Now, the situation that we have seen in the last 3 months is that a lot of these persons have been arrested, their enclaves have been destroyed, their resources have been seized, their ranks have been decimated, and the security agencies have also been able to secure the support of the international community. Only a few days ago, the Undersecretary Political Affairs of the United States was here, and she made it clear that the Nigerian government is on the right track targeting terrorism, and that the international community, particularly the United States, is prepared to stand by the Nigerian government in checking this scourge. That, in my view, is achievement. Now, all the neighboring countries around Nigeria, they are all behind Nigeria. Niger, Cameroon, Chad, Benin, Republic of Benin. They are all working hands in glove with this government to ensure that there is in checking terrorism. So this is the issue.
Okay, well, sir, I think the Nigerian government has to do much more to allay and assuage the fears of the Nigerian population. But talking about curbing terrorism, there were allegations of the federal government going into a contract with an Israeli IT surveillance company called EBIT to monitor the activities of Nigerians. Some committees were formed on information technology, human rights, and national security. Is the president truly considering such? I don't know. Is he truly considering such? Because we've never gotten a response from the federal government on this issue.
Well, I don't have detailed information on this particular issue. I know it came up and questions were thrown in my direction, but because I didn't have detailed information, I could not provide the kind of detailed information that was being, requested. However, I went online and I tried to search. And what I came up with is that, look, every country in the world tries to take its national security seriously. And part of national security has to be online or offline. And what I found is that, in fact, in some of these countries, including the country where you live and where many of you like to use as examples, you'll find that national security is not something you treat with levity. Okay?
Yeah.
So, but with this particular issue that you raised, I don't have the detailed information, but I think that the Nigerian government and the relevant agencies, they have a duty, they have the right to do anything, to take every necessary step to ensure security. And that security is not about occupants of offices. It is about the sovereignty of Nigeria. It is about the Nigerian citizen.
Even if
and
that
his
involves
well-being.
the violation of human rights?
Well, the point you are raising about violation of human rights has not been proven. Nobody has violated anybody's rights.
Because you're
If,
saying...
if
Yes.
anything, people who visit Nigeria, in fact, commend the Nigerian government that this is a free country and that this is a country where the freedom of expression, fundamental human rights in general, are well respected by the ruling government. And that includes the people you use as models. They come here and they tell us and they commend President Jonathan.
Well, I mean, this is a case comparable to what's happening in the U.S. about drone surveillance. I don't know if you're abreast. I don't know if you're abreast about that. Well, you're comparing, so I'm going to help you here. I don't know if you're comparing. I don't know if you're abreast about that. But it's the same issue happening
I'm
here.
well informed about
The
that.
Nigerian people
And
feel that
that's
such a surveillance technology will be a violation of human rights. If you're not fully abreast of this, maybe you need to be, because it will be. You can't say the Nigerian government is going to do everything it takes. There has to be checks and balances, sir, don't you think?
Well, you don't understand this subject. What I've just told you is that even in the United States, where you cite example, there are issues about surveillance, there are issues about freedom of information, there are issues, okay? If you will just be objective and not sit, in New York and then use the wrong lenses to analyze your own country. What I've told you is that the primary commitment of this government is to the security of the Nigerian citizen and to lives and property. However, as to the specific question that you asked, I've also told you that I do not have detailed information. So I've not confirmed anything to you and I've not denied anything. I've given you a theoretical explanation.
Well, I'll wait until you're fully abreast so that you can give us the right information for Nigerians.
Okay.
Thank you. So on a much lighter note, a column you had written censuring the Nigerian First Lady, Dame Patience Jonathan, resurfaced online, and you were criticized as being fickle and inconstant. What was the reason behind that write-up? And have your feelings towards the First Lady changed in any way?
Well, you are referring to the piece I did on the issue of rivers, right?
Yes. And
Is that the one
Patience
you're
Jonathan,
Well,
before you became the special advisor.
One of the major, well, that has become a cliche. And, it's a very funny kind of cliche because I get all kinds of people referring to it all the time. And I will give you a standard response. And it is as follows, which is that, look, the biggest kind of honor that any Nigerian can have is to have the opportunity to serve his or her country in any capacity. I chose to serve this government because I believe in President Jonathan. I chose to serve this government because for the first time in Nigerian history, we have a president who settled many of the issues that we thought were impossible in the history of this country. And I think that anybody who had been in my shoes at the time I took this job will also have been patriotic enough to take this assignment. Now, people heckling me and, saying you said this at this time and at that time, they miss the point that our focus is on Nigeria. Our focus is on supporting and working for President Jonathan to achieve his objectives. So all these sentiments and all that, I'm not intimidated by those sentiments. I'm committed to President Jonathan and I'm proud to work for my country. And I would like to advise you and others who ask this kind of question that when you have the opportunity to be called upon to serve your country, you should seize it.
Well spoken, sir. Okay, let's talk about the deportations from Lagos State. Why has the presidency been quiet about the controversies around that deportation? Don't you think that the rights of Nigerians are at risk?
Well, President Jonathan did not ask me to issue a statement on the matter. But I think that the matter has already been well discussed in the public domain. The Lagos State governor has also offered his own explanations. But if you were to ask for my own personal opinion, I have my own personal opinions. But I'm handicapped by the fact that I'm a presidential spokesman. So that's why I've not expressed my personal opinion on the matter.
I'd like to hear
But
your
if the
personal
president
opinion,
tomorrow
sir.
asks me, if the president asks me to issue a statement on the matter, I will, of course, dutifully do so.
So for now, Nigerians don't deserve anything from the presidency?
Excuse me?
I said, so for now, Nigerians do not deserve any information or any response from the federal government?
No, I've not been directed to issue a statement on the matter.
Okay.
If I'm directed to do so, I will.
So what is President Jonathan's stance on the ASUU strike?
ASUU strike.
Yes.
Now, the ASUU strike has been, a major issue in the public domain, and negotiations are ongoing between ASUU and government. And indeed, at least one state governor, Governor Suswam of Benue, is also involved in the discussions. Now, there are issues about 2009 agreement dealing with allowances. There are also issues about infrastructure. There are also issues about handover of infrastructure. There are also issues about ASUU saying they want to set up their own independent pension commission. Now, with regard to hand allowances, ASUU is saying that government should pay 92 billion in one fell swoop. And government says it cannot afford to do that because it doesn't have the resources. Government says it has 30 billion. Government has offered 30 billion. So the negotiations are ongoing. I think that at the last meeting, ASUU's position was that they would take the outcome of that meeting back to their members, and then they will get back to government. So I think that the dialogue is useful, the negotiation is useful, but government's position, however, is that it would prefer to concentrate on the rebuilding of infrastructure. There are 61 federal universities, and government has set aside funds to rebuild infrastructure, to strengthen the universities. And government is saying that it would rather not use that money to pay allowances in one fell swoop, while it remains sensitive to the demands, to the feelings of the members of ASUU. So what government is asking for is understanding on the part of ASUU. Because if you look at the budgetary plan, last year, for this year, government tried to scale down recurrent expenditure. Next year, in fact, recurrent expenditure is going to go down more, with greater emphasis on capital expenditure, because government inherited a situation whereby recurrent expenditure was so high. And President Jonathan is saying that he's more interested in legacies, in building infrastructure. He's more interested in building institutions. But ASUU looks like it's more interested in allowances.
So at what point?
However, the negotiations are ongoing, and I think it will be resolved, because
Okay.
it looks like at the end of the day, reason will prevail.
Okay. So, Dr. Abati, the last time you were on the show, you promised that you were going to bring President Goodluck Jonathan on this show. When can we be expecting him?
Well, I don't know whether the president would like to, well, it depends on him. I'll pass on I'll again pass on your request.
Okay.
But you know that the president is always ready to engage the media. In fact, in the last week, he's been telling me that we've not been doing enough in terms of, this kind of direct interaction with the media. So I've again noted your request, and you can be sure that, we'll address it. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a great pleasure having you on the show. Hope to see you soon. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. See you in September when we come for Onga.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for watching. Stay with us, Sahara TV.